This week you will actually be writing your business message. So last week I had you plan your business message, and I'm going to get you feedback on that pretty quick, because I realize you guys would probably value feedback on that before you get started too deeply into this. So I'm going to get you feedback on that pretty quick, probably even before the rhetorical analysis, because of the urgency of the situation. So this week I'm going to have you, like I said, have you compose your business message. So it's largely going to be based on Chapter 4 from the Business Communication Essentials book with Bove and Thill. There are, generally it talks about tone, about style, about the you attitude that was brought up before, and then it kind of breaks it up into 3 levels, from words, from choosing effective, strong words, to composing effective sentences, to composing appropriate and effective paragraphs. So it kind of starts low and kind of builds itself up to kind of give you a broad sense of how all this is connected. So I'm having you start with reading by Kyle Wyans. He's actually the CEO of iFixit. I'm not sure if any of you guys have heard of it or used it. It's kind of an online instruction guide for a variety of different technologies, software and hardware. It's actually pretty cool if you want to check it out. So he wrote another piece in the Harvard Business Review as a follow-up to his original piece about why he wouldn't hire people who use poor grammar, which is a pretty controversial article. But he had a follow-up talking about how your business is only as good as the writing it has. And that's one of the main things that I want you guys to keep in mind as you're composing is every time you write, you're part of a larger culture, right? An organizational culture. And I'm sure you guys have had this drilled into you for your undergrad and graduate courses in business, but you are an extension of the company and a reflection of the company, right? So you guys already know that. But that also happens on a written or verbal or communicative level as well, that how effectively you write speaks a lot to the nature of the organization. So take what you already know as savvy either business students or business people already, and apply that to writing and think about that. So it's an interesting piece. I'm not testing you on it or asking you any questions about it, but he does bring up some interesting points in there, kind of reiterating what I've been trying to get at for the first 4 or 5 weeks, which is writing. There isn't right or wrong writing. There's effective or ineffective writing in that. Writing isn't necessarily about following all the rules, because in this article in the Harvard Business Review, which is, as you know, quite a reputable publishing outlet, he does break a lot of the rules that we thought were set in stone from our high school experiences, such as beginning sentences with the word "and," or having incomplete sentences, or sentence fragments, or whatever it is, or starting sentences with "because." All these rules that have been drilled into us that we are trying to figure out and kind of negotiate, we've heard conflicting accounts of. He helps explain why that's actually not accurate, and that should have never been presented to us as such in the first place, because that harkens back to an archaic way of thinking about language as merely abiding by a set of rules, where in the workspaces and in the situations that we find ourselves in now, which are more dynamic, it's about what's effective. And it's about communicating clearly and getting your message across, more so than following these arbitrary rules that seem to change every decade or so anyway. So it's useful. It's a very short read. It's also a promotional tool. He's also talking about iFixit as well. So he obviously has a relationship, working business relationship there. So, but he's pretty bold in what he writes, and I like giving you guys little short pieces to read that are part of the publications that you guys would value, but are also relevant to the stuff that I'm teaching as well. So, your business message. So the first thing you have to do is read that and then watch this video, which you are right now. The next thing you have to do is compose your business message and upload your business message, whatever it is, to the Dropbox. There are 2 Dropboxes. So once you do that, there's the second Dropbox is a worksheet that you guys have to fill out about your business message. So it's kind of both documents are working together. So to have both open at the same time would be very useful. But the worksheet for this week, for week 5, is assuming that you have already written your business message. So you could do both at the same time if you wish, but the idea is you have your business writing message, and then you go and you read the textbook and see if your writing is aligning with the principles that Bove and Thill are talking about, with effective topic sentences, with word choice, with active versus passive voice, et cetera, et cetera. So the worksheet is asking you a bunch of questions that are encouraging you or asking you to apply the principles directly to your piece. So there's a bit of technical components to it. I'm asking you to highlight a lot of the words and make comments. But in the document itself, I actually give examples of how to do that. So if you have any questions about the technical parts, about how to use Microsoft Word, I think it's pretty straightforward. I would encourage you to Google it first before sending me an email, because most technical things can be answered on Google. So do that first before sending me an email, just to save us both time. So the business message, I don't want to use the word draft, because when I say the word draft, students tend to do a variety of things. There's a whole spectrum of what people mean by a draft. Some people see a draft as being what you guys did last week, which is a bullet by bullet outline. Some people think of a draft as a near perfect piece with just you have to edit the grammar and anywhere in between. So let's call it iteration as opposed to a draft, because a draft has all these weird problematic connotations attached to it. So the first iteration is what you're submitting to me. Do assume that it's going to change significantly, not only after doing the worksheet, but after I give you feedback, because we're revisiting this next week where you're actually doing some fine tuning on the piece. So focus on the content now. Focus on developing the content, getting all of it in the document first, and then next week we can do some of the finer points editing. So the last thing I'll say is Chapter 4 begins with this notion of a you attitude. And there's a question on this before talking about the you attitude. And it doesn't mean integrating the word you into the piece. A you attitude actually means thinking about what your audience needs and desires as you're writing the piece, right? So I made this analogy between rhetoric and business last week or 2 weeks ago, saying how good businesses anticipate customer needs and respond to customer needs, and always put the customer at the center of the process. And in the same way, rhetoric is asking you to do the same thing, that when you write, always have your audience in mind. Because if your writing is going to look poor or reflect poorly of you and the organization if you're putting yourself first and not your audience first. Putting yourself first means making things complicated, not having topic sentences, putting a bunch of different ideas in one paragraph, so it means that readers aren't allowed to skim through quickly if they need to. That's putting you before your audience, and that is, as Beauvais and Thiel kind of implied, this is a very selfish approach to writing. You always want to put your audience first in that respect. So the you attitude goes back to that rhetorical triangle that is at the beginning of most of the worksheets you guys have been doing this semester, where the reader or audience, I've been using those terms interchangeably, are co-constructing the text together, right? So the audience is helping construct the text, because your idea of what their expectations are or needs are framing and constructing and helping you think through the organization and word choice and sentence structure of your piece. So in that sense, this fictional audience that you've created is actually writing the piece with you in an abstract sense, but also in a very real way, because your document is actually taking different shape according to what you think the audience needs. So that's why last week's work was so important about profiling your audience, so that you can have the best sense of how specific you need to be. So let me know if you have any questions. I'll get that feedback from previous assignment back to you as soon as I can. And so keep in mind there are 2 drop boxes there. If you have any questions about the process that I have in mind, or if you'd like some extensions on your business message, I know some of you are writing longer business messages, kind of longer report type genres. Certainly I'm open to extensions, and whatever's best for you and your schedule. So let me know if you have any questions about any of that. If not, then I'll see you guys next week.